back on.
All right. And Garth is around here. Garth might show up.
Garth loves live streams.
I think Garth, our lights are too bright. We're not as bright there. We're a little bright there. It's up on Instagram. We gotta watch Instagram too.
All right. Periscope.
Here's our live stream here.
Store.
So we're talking risk versus reward on weighted baseball. It's y'all's favorite topic. Risk versus reward weighted baseball training. How excited are you guys? It's just a topic. You can ask anything you want. What's up, Jake? Look, Jake Schaefer. How's KC? Is it y'all freezing over there? This is live stream Fridays. We've got opinions on sidearms doing weighted balls. Steven, you get to go first.
Opinions on sidearmers doing weighted. I mean, regardless if you're a sidearmer or over-the-top guys, I think we titled this risk versus reward. I think it's just understanding what is your risk versus reward with weighted balls. So, I mean, the reward of it is fairly obvious. Studies have shown that it increases velocity 2-3 miles per hour, but now a lot of the studies are starting to come out to see that there's a big risk with it. And the big one is going to be Reynolds' study finding 25% injury rates with it, and you know, that's not good, guys. And if you're a sidearm guy and you want to start adding overload weight to that when you're already going to be getting a lot of torque from that arm slot, I think you're playing with fire there.
Hey, from Portland, Oregon, Steven.
Portland, Oregon.
Love all your videos. Thanks, guys. I appreciate what you guys do as a former pitcher and now instructor. And hey,
Awesome, man.
we love it. This is why we do it for guys like you. You
And
guys have
great
great hair.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Brent, you don't have Periscope?
I was downloading it.
Okay,
and
try
then
to get it.
You threw me into
Okay, I'll do the next question. Hey, how have you conversation with the president of Driveline been? Told you, here it comes.
Here we go.
We haven't had any conversation with him. Well, I mean, I've talked to him over the years. It's usually never good. It's usually like push and shove. You know, my issue's always been their approach. I don't believe in their approach. I like some of their other methods.
Download Periscope right now.
Just go to my Twitter. It probably will link you there to my Twitter.
Okay.
You know, I've been against their methods. This is why we're having this conversation right now. You know, we are in a pretty heated lawsuit with them and with Trevor Bauer, which we all know is, you know, does a lot of stuff with them. But yeah, and then see if you can turn the volume off.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's a tough subject, guys. I mean, if y'all have any specific questions, let me know. But it doesn't seem to work out. I mean, I'm open to go to the table and have a conversation with them. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And
Thank you, Albert.
it's just, I don't know if they're willing to do that and move on. It'd be nice if they could do it now, because I think the Bauer case is like really hitting home for this whole industry and for anything in out there, because it's an attack on your ability to do what's really going on in Europe. I don't know if y'all heard about this, but in Europe, they're voting Article 13 in Europe, and YouTube's really fighting against this. They have a hashtag Save the Internet or Save Our Internet or something like that. And Article 13 in the EU says if you're of anyone, an individual, a business, and you upload someone's copyright or you have someone's likeness, you are liable for damages. YouTube is really fighting this, and they're saying that if this happens in the European Union, that they would consider not allowing users to have YouTube accounts. They would only let businesses do it, so businesses can obviously be more protected for this. So the Bauer lawsuit's kind of pushing in that same realm. You know, should we be protected in our free speech to be able to talk and, you know, say defining pitch mechanics or defining, you know, you're discussing the opinion on someone's clothing or something like that. That's really what's going on. I think more coaches, more people out there really need to stand up and reach out to Bauer and even Driveline, who, you know, are coming into this case and say, guys, like, this isn't good for any of us. Why are we doing this? It just kind of blows my mind that we're doing this. We're having this lawsuit's going on in baseball that's really a fight against free speech, which could hurt us all if we lose. It could hurt everybody, which is crazy. What do you see over there? Can you catch those? What's a good clean for me at 135 pounds? We want to you're someone under 6 feet, so I would want to go 150% or more of your body weight would be a good clean for you. Do you think sidearms should throw from their sidearm slot when doing a weighted ball program? You know, guys, we're doing this risk versus reward on weighted balls. I don't believe in a weighted ball program. Now, we do an under or overweighted program with a two-handed med ball. That's a better approach because holding two hands doesn't allow you to disengage the arm, drag the arm, overload the arm, which is why a lot of the high-intent weighted baseball programs go wrong. So we're not going to even entertain it. I mean, we're ultimately going to be on the risk side, then we're really going to be on the reward side. We're just saying that we know that they're shown to be rewards, meaning in the studies they do show velocity increases, but they also show velocity increases for 2 to 3 pound dumbbells in a rotator cuff program has a similar velocity increase as a weighted ball program.
This guy says, I'm recovering from a partial rotator cuff from weighted balls. How likely is it to come back just as strong?
That's a good one. I'm actually going to save that. Because I like to keep those because more guys need to see that others are being injured from these approaches, so we got to be careful with them. In the coming back, it's really understanding the core principle that the arm is abused enough that we've got to pull as much stress and work off the arm as possible. We can't be in drills or throwing where we're forcing the arm to overwork, over-accelerate, pull down, force internal rotation. We've got to get out of that type of throwing, and we've got to get into efficient kinetic chain use, meaning getting force out of the ground. It's delaying the arm to give the arm time to go through the pass. That's hip to shoulder separation. So then when the arm is active, it's there just to transfer and funnel energy. It's not trying to generate energy. So, you know, you really need to start developing these kinetic chain total body mechanics to get out of falling back into injury again, and then you need to get your body strong and healthy. And that's where everything comes in. The strength and conditioning comes in, the nutrition comes in. It's a total body approach, everything we do with Top Velocity.
Well, I think that's a good point, though, too, is even with like a lot of people going into a weighted ball program, even if coaches are giving you assessments and like that, I would honestly challenge, like, if they understand the root of the issue, that will lead you and your mechanics down that road of injury in the first place. So then if they don't understand that root of the issue and then just throwing you into a weighted ball program, that is just, that's not a good path that you want to be going down. So make sure that you're, you know, with a coach that's assessing you, your full body joint mobility, they're assessing your biomechanics, they're assessing where you're at as an athlete, and can really tell you where they can see performance improvements, but also injury prevention in your mechanics. And if they're just not giving you any information on that and just telling you, hey, let's hop into a weighted ball program, I would steer very, very clear of that.
Hey, Jake asked, how much weight has Zach gained?
I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. You'll get mad at me.
You will get mad at you. Do you guys have my room for me? Yes, we do. We strive for greatness.
That's John Carlos.
Oh, it's John Carlo. No way.
Yeah.
All right. Weighted balls worked very well for me in pro ball. Well, there you go. As a catcher. Oh, it worked well for you as a catcher. Okay. Good mechanics versus being insanely strong. I think we're trying to do both. We're trying to not just be strong, but be powerful. And mechanics just allows us to get more of that out of the skill. So people don't understand, you really have to do them both. Because you could get really athletic, but if you don't understand how to organize it and move it through the skill to the ball, then it's going to be of little use. So that's why you got to make sure a lot of that strength is explosive, because that typically converts better because it happens quicker, which we need. You also got to make sure that that strength is mobilized. So you're moving it through a full range, and you're not just trying to do it in short little ranges, which make it really hard to use the kinetic chain when everything's in a short little range.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another point too, is that everybody wants to take it and just compartmentalize something into just one thing. Like, oh, can I just get insanely strong and make it happen? And it's like, yes, strength is absolutely important, but don't ignore all the other pieces. Because if you're missing other pieces and those are your weak links to becoming, you know, ideally what you want to be as a high velocity pitcher, then you have to address those weak links, which are individual to the guy. Again, which is where assessments are huge. So always test, never guess.
So what exercises are good for deceleration strength? So deceleration strength, okay, let's look at what we've seen measured. We've seen in the external rotation, the layback, the external rotation stability or the eccentric stability is up to 60 pounds. So I do want to be able to have some decent overhead strength, but I'm already at a 60-pound load here. in externalization, right? Which is going to be hitting the lats and the pecs and the rotator cuff. Also, too, at pitch release, we've seen numbers up to 250 pounds of force distracting or pulling the arm out of socket. So these are some serious amount of pounds pulling your arm because your arm's moving quickly in these cases. So are the trunks transferring that energy? And you got to decelerate the trunk too. So what's the better approach? Getting a little bitty ball, a little bitty 2 pound or 1 pound ball and trying to throw that backwards. I don't like that route. I mean, you could do that additionally, but I like having overhead strength. I like seeing a guy who can hold 100 pounds over his head or build up to it. Obviously, you're not going to jump into this. Build up to 100 plus pounds. He can hold it, he can load it, he can stabilize it. The scaps know how to hold and stabilize in that position. He can press up there, he can pull from up there. So that's why we're big on a lot of overhead strength development, because that's really how you protect your decelerators, or you enhance your decelerators, or you make the ability to decelerate all the arm speeds and the energy moving up the trunk is if you have that overhead strength. So that's our approach. Now you can still do tubing, and all that's important to get into the rotator cuff, but I don't believe you're just going to be safe and protected with just lightweight and overhead when it comes to overhead strength. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it almost laughable at times when there's guys doing, plyo care throws, or whatever they're trying to do to work on their deceleration muscles, and then you come to an overhead press and they can't overhead press, or they feel some sort of a shoulder pain when they're pressing overhead. They do really poor weight.
Hey, can somebody plug us back in?
What is
Hey, somebody plug us back in on
deceleration, throws or these
light
tubing exercises really going to do for you? I mean, it really comes down to, like Brent's talking about, who's going to have a better chance of staying extremely healthy overhead as a pitcher. The guy who can, like he's talking about, take 50% of his bench press and hold it over his head for 2 minutes time and be able to press in those positions, pain-free, or is it the guy that's taking a 2-pound ball and throwing it behind his back 100 or something times? To me, it's always going to be the guy that can build strength overhead and through all ranges of motion.
Steve, you're getting a lot of shout-outs on Periscope there. What does he say about nutrition?
Shout out to Steve. He's been helping me with my nutrition. That's Nestor. What up, Nestor?
Is there at least some revolving around followers through or grip that weighted balls can be used for? One thing with Facebook, it cuts you off when you get into a long text. Unfortunately, I can read it about up to there. Weighted balls, yeah, a lot of guys use to toss and get some forearm development with it. I'm fine with that. Okay, if you're just sitting there tossing it, I don't know, you could do some other creative stuff with it for forearm work. Fine with that. Squeezing it, I'm sure you could eventually squeeze it. I don't know. I think that could be uses of it. What pound med ball should a 13-year-old start out with? So what we do is we don't go over 2 pounds with our med ball use. We typically get something about the size of a volleyball with 2 hands through our drills and through our mechanics. If that's too heavy, so if you have a kid who feels pressure in the shoulder, pulling in the shoulder, then we go to a 1 pound. So they're hard to find. You can find a 1 pound med ball. If not, you can get a basketball. You can get, it's called a net ball. There's basically, just look on Amazon for 1 pound balls and try to get something about this big, because I found anything too big, now my elbow's way down. Anything too small, now everything wants to push forward. It's just come out with us, we've been doing this long enough, that the med ball with about the size of a volleyball is the better one to use. How about you stick to Instagram?
Okay.
Adam, you can sneak in there.
Are there open spots in Napa, California for players or coaches?
Yes, but here's the thing. Even with our coaches, we have to register. Now, if a coach wants to come in, I offer certification to coaches, and the way it works for coaches is you can come in with a pitcher. So it'd be ideal for a coach to come in with a pitcher, and they split the camp price together, and I will certify those coaches. I will list you on our site. I will help get you rankings in your area for instruction or whatever. We want to help coaches as much as we love having coaches come into the program. So that's how it would work. Yes, there's still spots available. topvelocity.net/ or it's topvelocity.org. Topvelocity.org. Adam, you want to read off the? You guys slide up and down over there.
Yeah, let me get over there.
Albert Soft.
Do you guys not do squat cleans? Yeah, we don't catch full cleans, mainly because we're not Olympians and we're not doing that heavy a weight. I'm really focused on bar height. I want to see that bar drive as high as I can. I'm going to have to enhance more explosive energy to do that, as opposed to allowing it go to just get above the knee and then I can shoot under the bar or squat under the bar. Now, we front squat a lot. So, if we're power cleaning and front squatting, we're getting, that squat clean work. We're just not catching it low. I don't want to see guys kind of cheat and shoot under the bar. We're all about bar height and power.
All right, Brent, what's your thoughts on the core velo belt?
So
Adam's going to be taking over.
Okay. In the level 2 program, we have assistance drills. Been having them for a long time. We use a skills belt. I've never used a velo core velocity belt, so I can't really say anything about it. But we use the skills belt for assistance drills, which is similar. And you basically has a band. You can hook it up and it'll pull you, or someone can pull it for you, and it gives you that assistance through your delivery. Helps you feel more momentum. Helps you, basically feel more momentum. You can use it in resistance too. You can turn around and pull back, forcing them to like a sled to load better, drive better. So that'd be, I would tell you we have the same approach, but it's done a little bit differently.
All right. RN53223 asks, what's the key to my son losing his habit of cupping his wrist? So I'm assuming you're saying like this, probably an arm cocking, like that.
He's cupping his wrist?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's probably like the old Barry Zito curveball. The only thing is like if you're doing like Barry Zito so basically he was hooking this curveball really early. I think when you get older, you're tipping your pitches. If your curveball's gonna be there and your fastball's there, but if every pitch is there, you're fine. The only thing is, I think eventually you have to go the other way. So if you're cupping here, you have to eventually go the other way. I don't know. I'd have to see their delivery to really get into the particulars of it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. Do you think that would add any more stress on the UCL or something like that if you're throwing like this? Or because he's probably just talking about the fastball coming from here and then cupping his wrist and then coming around.
How did it go exactly? What is the key to my son losing his habit of cupping his wrist?
So I'm assuming that he means
Yeah,
like
no,
throwing
I've seen
like
guys
that.
do this. I think, med ball throws would get him out of that. You can't do that with a med ball. Probably having him throw maybe a softball. If you really want to get rid of that, there's a weird little twitch that he has going on. Maybe throwing a softball would help.
I feel like just start from
Don't throw it hard though.
Start from here, get his arm cocked, and just have him lay his wrist back, because if he throws from here and keeps everything back when he's coming through, he's not going to be able to cup it.
Or even a football. Get him to throw a lot of football as well. Just tossing the football, working on supination to pronation.
If I don't have access to the belt that you put on your hip for the lateral sled drives, could I put the rope on my ankle instead?
Lateral sled drive, put it on your ankle. If I don't have access to the belt that you put on your hip for the lateral sled drives, no, it needs to be on your hip. We put it down into the thigh to really force you to load into adduction.
I just think the ankle's way too low.
Yeah, it's way too low. It's not going to work with the ankle. So.
Let's see. What is the best leg path?
Front leg path. A lot of guys do that, and the problem with overemphasizing leg path is it doesn't really emphasize the more important aspect, which is the back leg. The back leg is really what's powering your hips because it's the only leg on the ground. So you got to be careful with the front leg. You definitely don't want the front leg to fly open. So sometimes guys putting the leg down, extending the leg helps them prevent flying open. Some guys, that slows them down too much. Some guys need to stay flexed and think about moving more quickly. We talk about that in the program. And the mechanics guys, we talk about a flexed pattern of the lift leg or an extended pattern. And that's really, I think, the only way to talk about the lift leg. Either you're going to keep it flexed and move your hips forward and stay closed, or you're going to extend, move your hip forward and stay closed. And one makes it a little bit easier than the other.
Best bench in the facility right now.
Did Ed just ask?
I don't know. I don't think
Ask Ed that question.
Yeah.
Hey, Reagan, he just asked the best bench in the facility right now.
I said Ed.
I said, did Ed ask that? It's not Ed, it's somebody else. Where was it? Was that Ben, Rob? It was Ben asked it.
Oh, Ben?
Best bench in the facility right now.
Well, Ed.
Jake just threw you under the bus.
What did he say?
He said, has Zach gained any weight? And he said, ha, ha, ha.
I mean, Ed cheats with slingshots,
Gained 3
though,
pounds.
so
You
I don't know.
I mean,
remember, Jake?
He has a legendary bench.
Yeah.
So
Schaefer?
he's kinda
Yeah,
like-
Schaefer.
I gained 3 pounds. Edwin probably has the best bench.
Yeah, but
I would say so.
Edwin. We didn't want to have to go there.
I mean, if you
weighted balls to teach body awareness. So I think proprioception-wise, any weight would work. So, I mean, I'm not going to say not. I mean, it's probably best if you're doing proprioception work where you're like bouncing it around on the wall or something like that. But to throw it, it's going to basically, here's the issue I have with the shoulder. So the shoulder is the most vulnerable joint because it's the smaller joints as we go distally that are obviously too have the pattern of injury in baseball. So they're the more prone to injury. Now, there's a mechanism in all joints through proprioception to keep the joint stable and keep the joint protected from pulling it out again. Hey, somebody plug us back in. Keeping the joint stable and protected from injury. So what the musculature is trying to do, it's trying to balance the ball and socket in there, or even here when the bones are trying to pull apart, it's trying to compress it, prevent them from pulling apart. So if that's what the muscles are trying to do to prevent the bone from flying out, say in the ball and socket, from flying out and tearing the labrum, tearing the rotator cuff, so the better it is at doing that and keep it in there, the healthier that joint's going to be. So the problem is when you constantly throw one weight, 5 ounces, 5 ounces, 5 ounces, the brain trains the joint to be ready to stabilize that. Well, if you start mixing it up and you go 6 ounces, 7 ounces, 8 ounces, 9 ounces, whatever, 2 pounds, back and forth, you're confusing the central nervous system to be able to stabilize those joints. So I don't like confusing the central nervous system there. So a lot of people say body awareness is that confusion, but the point is that all it can go off is muscle history. So if you've been going 5 ounces, 5 ounces, 5 ounces, and you grab a 9 ounce and you start throwing, it still think it's a 5 ounce. So it's not protecting the joint as well. And that's when the injury happens. It happens in like a few throws when it got tired and it wasn't ready for that weight because you confused it. So I don't like that approach for body awareness, man. I don't really think at that point you really need body awareness. You just need to be strong and explosive in the weight room. And we use proprioception in many different ways, but I don't want to use it in the area where we already have a lot of arm injury and a lot of risk for arm injury. That's what makes me nervous, and that's where we see a lot of guys getting hurt. When we already started this feat, someone was telling us how they just tore their labrum on weighted balls. And that's how it happens, that quick.
I mean, I think using like the body blade, or it's like the shoulder oscillation, or what they call it, right? Mm-hmm. But I think using that, especially you're teaching different movements in your shoulder to stabilize.
That is a better way, because the brain's not going, I'm throwing a baseball right now.
Yeah.
The brain's going, I'm just holding a weight and shaking it around.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's really, you don't want to get the body to think you're throwing 5 ounces when you're throwing 9. And there's a stick or whatever that's not going to do that to the central nervous system.
Well, it's a different movement. You're still teaching your shoulder how to stabilize, but you're not doing it through the explosive movement of throwing, especially like Brent said, it's one of the most vulnerable joints in the body. You don't want to be putting that stress where, your brain or your body's not used to, using that weight.
Right. Any chance you will schedule a trip to Phoenix for a camp? Yes, definitely. We'd love to do that. Bossier Parish Community College listening. Heck yeah, Bossier.
What's the key to my son losing the habit of cupping his wrist? That's like the same question.
I think that was the same question. Like the kinetic chain mechanic development. Preach on. Thank you, Rob. Okay. You got anything over there? What is your input on getting 12-year-olds to stop flying their front hip open? So that is the problem. And a lot of, I think the King of the Hill, the Velo Pros are really great devices in those young kids that want to lift and just fly open. So I would sit there with those devices. King of the Hills, because they have to pop the plate. You're not going to pop the plate flying open. Velo Pros, it's holding your back hip down. It's hard to fly open when your back hip's being held down. So those are just two really good tools. The problem is the kids don't have a lot of leg strength, leg power. They don't know how to use that with the ground. So sometimes you got to force them. And those drills, specifically the Velo Pro, is forcing them not to fly open. The King of the Hill is giving them a feedback. Am I flying open? Well, I didn't pop the plate. Good chance I probably flew open. And it just constantly gives them the feedback. So if they're going for that incentive to pop the plate, then now they're getting better because they start popping the plate and there's a good chance they're not flying open.
Yeah, I think a big thing too is that, especially at a young age, when kids have weak legs, kids are trying to rotate so much that if you come through and you don't have any drive and you try to rotate, a lot of times what happens is that front hip will open, and instead of being on a straight path to home plate, the front leg will go and it'll go towards the first base side. All of a sudden you're opening, you're casting, and you're dragging your arm. So if you're not driving into rotation and you're just trying to do rotation or be rotational without the drive, a lot of times that will happen where the front leg will open up to the other side and you catch your elbow.
All right, we got. I always warm up with the weighted balls. People always ask that, warming up with the weighted balls. You know, I'm not as concerned because you're not throwing it at max intent, and your arm has time after that when you pick up the ball to kind of readapt. So I'm not as worried with the weighted balls. Now, do understand that your arm will quickly gain external rotation when you add that stress. So if you put on more weight, your arm quickly over time will start to external rotate. We saw that in the Reynolds study. Their acute external rotation increased almost to 10 degrees. So the thing is, be careful. If you're throwing them in the warm-up and that just quickly desensitizes your rotator cuff to want to lay back more due to that stress, and now you're at end of range and you go get tired at the end of the game and you're still there and you're cranking, you know, as hard as you can back there at the end of range, once again, you're more vulnerable. So I still kind of get nervous with a weighted ball, even in warm-up, but I'm not as concerned, obviously, as if it was at high intent.
I think a big problem, too, is that if you're going to be in the bullpen and you're warming up with, say, a 6, 7, or 8 ounce or whatever that you're throwing, you know, as soon as you go from that, you're going to go to a 5 ounce, and all of a sudden, you know, your proprioception is going to be off, and
Keep going.
yeah, you know, your location is going to go off, because if I'm throwing a 7 ounce and I'm throwing, say, fastball in the black outside corner, as soon as I pick up a 5 ounce, my location is going to be different. So I feel as if it's best to warm up with a 5 ounce, which you're going to throw in the game, because you're going to be able to pinpoint, you know, you're going to be able to, because that's what you're using in the game. You're not going to get in the game and throw a 7.
Is there a reason why my shoulders always opens up at front foot strike when my hip also opens? So that's just common, guys. Like the front side flying open is overcompensation. So if I lift my leg and I go to front foot strike and I hit front foot strike, or I'm about to hit front foot strike, and there's no energy coming behind my body projecting me forward, then all you can do is land and start pulling to get this around. So when you land, if there's no energy exploding through to catapult that forward, then you're going to land and you're going to start pulling through your glove side to overcompensate. So it's just very common for guys to fly open because they typically lift and fail to generate the force production on the backside. So they start immediately going to the front side to get the arm to start to come around. And we want to do the opposite. We want to load and drive and power the body through the hip, up the kinetic chain, as the trunk delays to then receive that energy and catapult forward. So if you fail to get that energy going, you're going to be forced to go to the front side because that's the only way you're going to get energy.
Zach, we got a question for you, man. Come over here.
Weighted balls, and it helps me throw a lot better and loosen up my reel good, but I'm not a pitcher, but I'm an outfielder, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, the Throg Dog 96 asks, why can't Zach put on weight?
Dude, they are all over you, bro.
You're just getting bro. Explain Zach.
Hey, I've been having trouble. I've been puking a lot lately.
You can't finish your meals?
No,
I need to go see it,
for
yeah.
him, it's probably just got to work on his gut,
Look
man.
how light this kid is, man. I'm gonna pick him up.
No, but yeah, he needs to go to a dietitian because if we get in someone who has a specific dietary
Especially
issue,
I've been puking every week.
yeah, you need to go to a dietitian. So anyone has a specific diet-related issue, we actually aren't legally protected to give you specific advice. We can just educate you on nutrition, which is what we try to do. But that's a specific issue that he needs to go to a dietitian for.
Yeah, you gotta find out, how your body works and if you're allergic to
I'm going
anything.
on like 2 weeks.
Napa.
Good. I like it.
Cool. Is it a normal experience to have a lot of soreness in the legs and hips after using the Velo Pro?
Yeah, well, and I even talk about in the program with the Velo Pro, topvelocity.net/Velo Pro, is it because you're constantly pulling in and loading one side, you could get your hips to get out of alignment. So I was talking about, I did it again, it killed. It does it every time. Get it back out. Here it goes right here.
All right, I'll remember that for next time.
And we lost all those questions.
Okay.
I don't know, every time we get a Instagram crash, so we just had another Instagram crash. So we were talking about the Velo Pro, sometimes it can create all that soreness. Well, it should be creating soreness because it is putting a lot of resistance into your hip. But you feel like you're getting a little out of alignment, put it on the other leg. Basically put the same amount of work on the other leg and it'll help keep your hips in alignment. Or right afterwards go to some bilateral squatting and really help kind of work that alignment.
I think one thing too, if you really haven't been driving before, you're new to the program, any time that you do any movement that you haven't done before, especially if you haven't been using your legs, in the beginning, it's definitely going to get sore. I remember when I first came down here in 2015, when I really started to drive and I was doing the med ball throws, I remember my hamstring and my quad, I'd wake up the next day and be like, wow, like it's sore, but the soreness came out of my arm and it went to my legs. So, you're taking the stress from your arm and you're putting on your legs, and obviously your legs are going to be able to handle that a lot more than your arms.
So it says, Brent, when I pitch, I drag the side of my toe and it puts a hole in my cleat. Is there anything mechanically that is causing this?
So is he saying that he lands and then...
So on your foot wear and tear, your drive foot, you want it on the top of the toe, because that means you're going into front foot strike with back leg rotation, back leg extension, drive. We want that hip opening as quick as we can at front foot strike. So if my hips are open, I'm dragging my toes. So you want the wear and tear on your toe, and that's why we wear pitching toes. If you're getting it on the side of your foot, that means you're driving and your leg isn't internally rotating, so your hips aren't rotating. So that means maybe you got some good power, but you don't have much hip rotation, which isn't going to sequence the kinetic chain well. It's not going to help drive that energy up the shoulder. It's going to kind of get stuck in that hip. So that is an indication that you're not getting good rotation. So you would have to work on more torsion, working power and extension through torsion to get more powerful internal rotation, adduction, and then that gets that foot over and that foot starts dragging on the top. That's what you want.
Best med ball workouts for pitching. We have, the med ball circuit too, on top of the med ball throws that we do. So, it just depends on what he's talking about. I don't know if he's talking about med ball throws or...
So we do, I don't know if you know our program, you can watch The Grind, we show it a lot. We use a 2-pound med ball, we work with 2 hands, we work on hip to shoulder separation and how our leg drives really enhance that and power all that energy. The 2-pound med ball is great because it takes the wear and tear off your shoulder. That's the one thing I tell guys, like one thing hitters have over pitchers is that they can take a ton of reps to work on their swings, and that allows them to get better if it's good reps. Pitchers can't do that. They burn out, they wear out, and they wind up having arm problems. So what we've done with this med ball approach is it takes the stress off the body, or takes the stress off the arm, because you can't disengage the arm, you're not dragging the arm, you're not overloading the arm. It keeps it all engaged in the trunk, and it makes it work with the trunk to carry energy, and now you're taking all that stress off the arm, and you're still able to load and drive and separate. You're getting all that trunk work, leg work, and it's keeping those mechanics improving, which like the hitter can do as he keeps adding rep after rep after rep. So that's why we really like the approach, because you can just get more work in without having a lot of wear and tear.
Tell me about the GFT hitting program.
Yeah, cool. So I just put it up. That's the ground force torque hitting program. So GFT is ground force torque. So we're generating ground force and we're generating torque. A lot more torque is in hitting. There's a lot more reliance on rotational energy. So that's the approach. And in the program, you're going to get all the hitting mechanics through that approach, and how to separate your phases, how to use your legs, how to separate your hips and shoulders, very similar to some of the pitching, how to sequence lower body to upper body, and how to maximize power through that. And it also comes with the beginner lifting program, but it is recommended with the 2X program. So those position players that have the 2X program, which is the advanced fusion system, or the top velocity Olympic lifting based program, with the throwing drills, you just add on the ground force torque or GFT hitting program, and that gives you all the hitting drills to do, and it uses a 2-pound medicine ball. So it's very much still around our foundation of the methods that we have here, which is using the medicine balls to better transfer power through the kinetic chain, and then moving that into the swing, so right into the bat and all the hitting drills with the bat, and then enhancing your athleticism through the lifts and the training to make that not only more efficient but more explosive and enhance your bat power. So.
Okay, so Blake McLean asked, what's your opinion on combining plyo balls with 3X training?
Like I said, with the 3X training, we're getting all the overhead work. So we're getting all the upper body strength. We're big overhead guys. So the problem is, when I hear weighted balls, plyo balls, whatever, I hear more throwing into the approach. So I don't want more throwing in this approach. We already throw a lot in the drills. I don't want to put more stress on the arm, because then I'm not going to be able to get in there, do my bench press work, my pull work, my overhead work. So I don't want, to be honest, I wouldn't want that. I know there's enough throwing in this approach, and more throwing is going to take away from the lifting that we need to do that's so essential for your off-season development.
Yeah, I think a big problem too is that, people get in the off season, you want to work on your mechanics and you want to work on all these different things, but throwing, like Brent says, if you're tearing down your arm and you're going to lift and you're tearing it down even more, you're going to put so much wear and tear on your arm, and you're going to get into the season and your arm's already probably going to be tired. You already put all that wear and tear during the season, and you get to the off season. The whole key is to build up that strength so that way your arm can handle the wear and tear during the season. You don't want to put that wear and tear during the off season, because if you do that during the off season, you're just going to break yourself down and you're putting yourself in a bad position for your next season.
He says, what are good stretches? What are best UCL stretches? So
I don't want to stretch my UCL.
Yeah, you don't want to stretch your UCL, and you got to even be careful stretching your flexor mass too much, because if you stretch that out and now it can't compress to protect that UCL, you're going to be more vulnerable. So you want to be careful overstretching, say, forearm and rotator cuff specifically before you throw. You can do those stretches after you throw, but definitely be careful before you throw. What you really want to do to protect the UCL is you want to build forearm strength, bicep strength, tricep strength, shoulder strength, total body strength. You want to learn how to use the kinetic chain to turn the arm into more of a funnel than a generator, and then you're putting less stress on the UCL at that point.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to compress the joints, stretching obviously has its place, but if you're putting all your emphasis on stretching, instead of having a tight forearm where everything in here is compressed, that when you throw it doesn't pull apart. If you stretch it too much, you're going to go throw and everything's going to be loose and everything's going to come out, so it's going to put more stress on your arm in the long term.
So how can I get my stride? How can I extend my stride? My stride is very short. So
back leg power.
Yeah, the stride should strictly be built in back leg power. So if you use the front leg, you're going to wind up reaching, flying open. Everything goes wrong if you try to do it with your front leg.
Yeah, I remember I was 11 years old, and I remember when Tim Lincecum came out, or I was young, I don't remember how long it was ago. This is probably like 08, 09, and everybody was obsessed. Longer stride increases velocity, and everybody was so obsessed with getting a longer stride. And I would literally try to get in my room. I remember I pick up my front leg and I would put out the measuring tape, and I was trying to stride as far as I could. But the problem is that if you're doing that, you're going to start hopping, you're going to try to go forward, and all of a sudden you're going to lose all that power from the back leg, and you're going to lose all your velocity.
So the stride should be built on your force vector. So what's your force vector? Your ankle to knee. If I can get that linear, so when I come out of leg lift, if I can get that linear without losing stability, which means hold external rotation, if I can get that linear, more linear I get, meaning forward and down, the more forward and down I can go, and then I can drive out of the position, I'm going to open up my stride, and I'm going to keep it explosive. I'm going to keep my hips driving. I'm going to separate, and you're not going to lose all your power. That's the key. We break that down in the training series I did on the lower half. It's free. Go to topvelocity.net/lower half, all one word.
Alternative workout besides lunges and squats for legs. I don't know why you'd want to do something alternative to squats, but
why do you need an alternative for lunges and squats for the legs?
I mean, I'd be assuming maybe.
What's up, Alex? You just came out with the hitting program. Yes, I did. Thanks, Alex. Check it out, topvelocity.net/GFT. Here's one. When doing the knee drills, I get soreness in my patella tendon, why might this be happening? So when we do a lot of these linear positions where you're internally rotated and you're stabilizing there, well, if you're not strong there and you're not used to putting loads there, the force is pushing down into your patella tendon, which sits there right over your kneecap. So all that force pushing down right where you have it connecting into the tibia, it can create some little tendonitis or just some inflammation. So what I recommend, if you get that, you get a patella wrap. It's a little, you can go to any store that has like braces, and it's just this little band that goes around your patella tendon and gives it a little support. It's similar to a shin splint, but in your knee. So it's just wear and tear. You're probably overdoing it, so you might want to take back on your reps. And it's a weakness and it's inflammation, but the patella wrap really works well.
Tell Adam I'm proud of him for not disappearing like a genie for more than 2 weeks.
That's Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That's your Vegas boy, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You Vegas guys, y'all are all like related, huh?
I guess so, man. I guess it's in my blood.
Baseman, that's perfectly fine, but okay. What else we got?
Is it a major disadvantage to be 5'7" as a pitcher? Personally, I don't think so. I think
But go look at, we just had Dom do another thing. He's jumping over his car. He's 5'8", guy can throw in the low 90s.
I think Ed's going to be the next one to do that. So
we seriously, go watch. It's amazing. He sent a video of him jumping over his car. That's how crazy that guy is.
Yeah, well, just look at the big leagues. You know, you see guys that are 6'8" throwing 100, and you see guys that are 5'6", 5'7" throwing 100. So I don't think it's necessarily.
It's just harder. It's harder. I mean, well, it is a disadvantage. It just doesn't mean you should give up. I mean, you know, it's like, for example, he's big, but at the same time too, right now he's slow. So it's like, he loves his size, but he's got to get better at moving his size.
Yeah.
So when you're little, a lot of times little guys are fast, so, and that's your advantage. So his advantage is height, his disadvantage is his speed. You know, you might have a disadvantage of your height, but your advantage is your speed. So it's being disproportionate. If you're disproportionate negatively, you need to be disproportionately positively in some other aspect to overcompensate, or several other aspects to overcompensate.
Well, it's like I tell people, you know, everybody has a different road to getting where they want to go. So, you know, it just depends, you know. Obviously, if, you know, me being bigger, I don't have to move as fast, and for you, you have to move faster. So everybody's...
Thanks, Corey.
What?
You recommend using weighted balls for 13-year-olds. I don't recommend using weighted balls for anybody. Like I said, we have an alternative approach. It's a two-handed, 2-pound med ball approach to not allow the arm to disengage and overload and get stressed. So I don't recommend it specifically 12-year-olds. I posted a thing the other day saying studies show that weighted ball throwing didn't improve arm strength. It actually, in some cases, it made the arm weaker. It didn't improve arm speed. But it did improve external rotation, and external rotation gains is a sign of laxity. The joint is getting weaker, and that's why it's going back in a very short amount of time. So if studies are showing that it's potentially creating more laxity, why would you want to take a 12-year-old who typically has a lot of joint laxity and is typically very weak? Why do you want to put him in a program to create more of that laxity, more of that weakness? That, in my mind, that just makes him way more vulnerable to injury. So that's the problem.
Yeah, I think a big problem too is that, you know, people are so anxious. They want more external rotation. They think if they get more external rotation, they're going to throw harder. But you gain external rotation just from throwing a baseball. So you're going to get that external rotation that you would get throwing a baseball, and you're going to get that over time. You know, rushing it with a weighted ball is just going to put you in a place for injury.
So the guy was basically saying stretching his UCL. He just has little league elbow. He wants to know, can he stretch to make it better? What's the best way to prep for this bullpen? Here's the thing with little league elbow, you got to be careful. That's typically an injury related to someone pre-puberty. That means could be displacing your growth plate at the end of your ulnar. Yeah. And what happens is if it rips off, then they have to go in and screw it back on. It's not a thing you want to do. So a little league injury is typically inflammation of the elbow, which means your growth plate could be pulling off a little bit. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're throwing too much for your age. You need to bring down your amount of throws, bring down your intensity of throws, and you need to work on your legs and work on all these other things that we talk about top velocity to keep yourself healthy. And you definitely don't need to be trying to do some stretching, because that could actually make it worse. It'll weaken the muscle, so it wants to pull even more. You don't need to be trying to fight through this at a young age, because it's only going to work against you. It is good to throw when you're young, but it's not good to overthrow. It's never good to overthrow, specifically when you're young, because you could rip your growth plate.
Yeah, one of the things too is that, you know, a lot of parents or a lot of, you know, no, I wouldn't say parents, you know, parents, kids, you know, they want to play, you know, you want to go out there and win, you want to keep pitching, but I feel as if at a young age, especially if you want to have a successful career, you know, later down the road, you need to be more focused on, you know, training and, you know, building up the athlete from a young age. You know, that comes from strengthening, obviously throwing, not overthrowing. And if a kid has pain and complains about elbow pain, he shouldn't be throwing, especially at that young age.
So someone's saying it's throwing with an elbow sleeve protect the arm. See, guys, this is why we love doing these shows, because what we're learning, specifically even when you bring up the weighted ball topic, a lot of guys overthrowing, a lot of guys into arm pain, arm injury. We got to be careful here. If we throw 8 months out of the year, more than 8 months out of the year, we're 5 times more likely to have injury. If we throw fatigued, we're 36 times more likely to have injury. So let's just follow those basic rules, and let's get better at all the things that we talk about, like the kinetic chain. Now, sleeves, these things are Band-Aids, guys. Like, I don't think this is what protects your arm. They're just Band-Aids. Now, I'm not gonna say sleeves are bad. I mean, they can help. They do give you some compression. Compression helps improve proprioception, which means the body can feel itself better, and it can stabilize joints better. So I would say it does help.
But if you're using a sleeve because your arm hurts, it's not a good approach. I did that many times, but I also had elbow and shoulder. Well, I had shoulder surgery. I had a lot of elbow shots or cortisone shots back in the day in my elbow. Would working on the triceps for a 15-year-old strengthen the arm, pecs, lats? You're going to work on it all. You got to work on. See, the point is unfortunately, it's not a smart understanding of how this works if you're just focusing on one muscle group. If you're like, well, traps are bad, biceps are good, or forearms are good, biceps are bad. Guys, they're all working together. If all these muscles are attaching in this joint, then they are working together to stabilize that joint from injury. So you don't want to neglect any of them. It's bad when you overemphasize one, and throwing typically really can fatigue both. But if your bicep starts getting fatigued, it starts tightening up, you start losing range, and your triceps start getting weak because they get overstretched, you start losing range. That doesn't mean, neglect one or the other. That means you got to get both strong. You got to get everything. You got to get your forearm, you got to get your shoulder, you got your body. I'm never going to stop. If someone comes to me and says, what are the most important muscles? I'm going to go everything.
There's a reason why they call it total body strength. They base the athlete, on everything that they can do. It's not just one thing. So, if you're weak in any area, if there's any muscle group that you're weak in, it's going to be a disadvantage in general.
I'm a community college pitcher, and I'm 6 feet 175. My coach is 6 feet much bigger than me. Will the coach evaluate me regardless of my skills?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, when you go to school, I feel like one of the first things they look at is velocity. Can you pitch this and that? I don't think, the height's really going to detract from you.
I think a coach plays you purely on your ability. I don't think he's going to say, well, you're smaller than him, you're not as good as him. I think you just have to impress him in other ways. You're not going to impress him in size.
Yeah.
You're going to impress him in speed and mental toughness. You got to impress him in other ways.
Well, scenario two, imagine that there's two kids going to a community college, and say one kid is my height, say he's 6'7", but he throws 82, and there's a kid that's 6 foot, but he throws 92. So obviously the coach is going to take the kid that throws 92.
Is this pocket radar an accurate gun compared to the Stalker and Jugs? It is. It's just a short range radar, so it's not something that good to be used as a scout when you're trying to get long distances with it. It's a short range one, so it's great for training, and it's going to be just as accurate, all of them.
Yeah.
If you go get the Smart Coach, which we use here, Smart Coach with the display in the back you see on the grind, go get it off pocketradar.com. Use the code TOPVELOSC for Smart Coach, and you get 10% off.
I feel like most kids are using radar guns for training. Especially with your med ball throws, baseball throws, whatever. Usually, seeing where your velocity is, seeing what the difference is when you do different mechanics or you improve leg power, stuff like that. But most of the time, you're not really going to need it for in-game. Especially, most stadiums, especially in college and stuff like that, you're pretty close to the backstop anyway. So, I mean, I've seen even scouts at the games. I've seen a lot of, professional scouts using pocket radars. So a lot of them prefer the bigger guns because they get more range. You can go up to however many hundreds of feet. But, most of the time they're behind home plate and they're getting, I look at it within 1 mile an hour every time.
Yeah. What do you think of ROMWAD? I don't even know who that is, Ryan. Also, how do I increase my med ball throw velocity? Ryan, it's getting better. Your mechanics, your 3X mechanics. You got power, but you struggle in mobility, specifically in your hip to trunk, and therefore you struggle at the ability to get good hip drive or back leg drive to create a lot of hip rotation and a lot of hip to shoulder separation. You have to do your best, just like you did with your power development, to get your hips to mobilize better, your trunk to delay, more separation, get it more linear power, get lower center of mass. You're not a tall guy, get down like Sonny Gray. You got to really work on those things, and that's when your med balls go up.
Importance of hip flexibility.
Yeah.
What?
Ask that dude who jumped over his car what kind of crack he's on, because I need some of it. That's Dom. Dom's crazy. What do you think of Driveline program in general? I like their what they do with pitch, their pitch design stuff. I'm not obviously a fan at all of the weighted ball approaches. I've been pretty hard against their weighted ball approaches because I really don't believe it for any approach. But they're not the only ones doing it. A lot of guys are doing weighted balls. I just think it's not a healthy approach specifically for young kids. I think
one thing too about the Driveline program, I've read Hacking the Connect chain and went all the way through it, especially for biomechanics. It's very generalized. It doesn't really go in depth of how to use your legs to generate force, how to arm cock, all these different things. It's very generalized. It doesn't give an in-depth way how to do it. So I feel like something like 3X pitching, especially if you get an analysis or something like that, you're going to have Brent break you down to a very fine point of what you need to do instead of having some generalized program.
What is the best thing to do for right rotator cuff? I guess for rotator cuff. So what we do with rotator cuff, we get into some light dumbbell or tubing work because that allows you to isolate the smaller muscle groups. Because if you go too heavy, then your deltoids, your lats, all your big muscle groups get in. So we do a lot of, light dumbbell routines, a lot of external rotation, internal rotation, and then tubing. You can do it with tubing as well. That's pretty much it. You can do rice too, but rice gets a little bit more into forearm work.
I feel as if too, even heavy lifts, bench press, overhead press, stuff like that, you're still activating your rotator cuff when you do those exercises. Because a rotator cuff, it helps the ball sit in the socket. So every single time that you do something with your shoulder, if you're moving it, the rotator cuff is stabilizing the joint in the socket. So, and I feel like too, a lot of pitchers, they ignore doing, heavy lifts or heavy strength training because they think that, oh, well, I just need to worry about my rotator cuff. I don't have to worry about these other areas. But if you have a stronger deltoid or anything like that, it's going to take pressure off your rotator cuff. So it's all about, strengthening everything.
Any odd mechanics or injury stuff for lefties? No, lefties are the same. It's really no different. It's, righties are going to do, or the body is symmetrical. So whatever you do on the right side, you should be able to do on the left side. This is a guy who can throw almost just, you can throw in the 80s on the left side and you've thrown in the 90s on the right side. So, you tell them it's just the same thing. It's just learning.
Yeah, it's not like I get on the left side, I'm like, oh, I just need this new magic drive to make me throw harder. It's the exact same thing. It's just mirrored on the other side. So, especially when I started throwing left-handed when I was 14 years old, it was a lot more awkward and it's a lot different. But I was trying to mirror my right side on my left side. And that's how I got so good at it, because I was trying to mirror what I was doing here over there. Because I would get here and I think, okay, what do I do right? I gotta stay closed. I gotta, get my shoulder back. I gotta drive. I gotta do all those things. So it's the exact same thing.
How do you recover faster? Nutrition is a big piece. So checking out our nutritional program, Steven developed it. He's got a certification in nutrition. topvelocity.net/nutrition. That's huge, because getting your macros and your micros provide the nutrients your body needs when it's broken down, it's fatigued. It's just your body needs to be replenished. So understanding, fats, proteins, and carbs based on your body type, understanding vitamins and minerals and how to get that in your foods in a good whole food approach. That's huge. Sleeping too. A lot of you guys, I understand, I was your age too. Y'all don't want to go to bed early. I get it. I don't like it either, but I have to because I got kids. But, getting 1 hour of sleep before 12 o'clock is equal to 2 after 12, because you're trying, typically REM, where we do most of our hormones dump to rebuild our body, happens around just before we wake up. Around 6, if you're going to bed at 10 o'clock, around 5, 6 o'clock. And you're not going to go into REM because it takes all that time of your sleep to get your brain waves down. So when you get to 5 or 6 o'clock, you're in REM and your body starts dumping all these hormones to heal your body. But if you're getting into that 6, 7 hours of sleep and the sun's out and it's loud and the cars are driving around, you're waking up. You're not getting, you're sleeping above those brain waves where you need to really get into REM. So that's the problem. That's why 1 hour before 12 is equal to 2 after, because better chance you get to REM when the sun's down and activity's not going on, and you're going to get into that REM sleep.
I think a big thing too, obviously diet is hydration. Your body's mostly made up of water, and especially, with your elbow, your shoulder. If you don't have enough water in your system, all that lubricant that your body creates, to keep your joints working good, you're going to get in the game, you're going to be throwing.
Well, hydration is used, and hydration does that. It actually it improves the pliability of your soft tissue. So hydration is a huge, huge piece.
Yeah, so you could be in the game and if you're dehydrated, because I think your ligaments are I don't know, it's probably 70, 80%, something like that. It's a crazy
it's a high amount of water. It's really high.
So if you're dehydrated and you get in the game, your ligaments aren't going to be able to be as pliable, and obviously that's going to put you in a higher rate of injury.
Right, your tissue will tear more easily. Yeah. That tissue threshold. So, they've done studies that show better athletes hydrate better, and their tissue thresholds are going to be higher because of that. So hydration is huge. Close grip bench press or wide grip bench press, both, Ryan, cause of bicep pain when throwing. So the bicep decelerates the forearm. So if you just keep throwing, that bicep keeps trying to decelerate your forearm, and your bicep's weak, and it knots up, it tightens up, and it hurts. And you push on it, it's hard as a rock. It's just weakness and all that wear and tear. So you got to get out of that wear and tear. You got to build up strength in that bicep and that tricep. You don't want one stronger than the other. and then all of a sudden you go back and it can handle that wear and tear. It's just breaking down, it's weakening, and you're yanking on it, and it's like it gets in the fetal position, it's trying to protect itself, and you keep yanking on it, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I just think, most arm pain comes down to weakness and poor biomechanics.
Looks like we're getting to the end. Let's see. I can full effort throw and feel no pain. I never feel sore. My pain usually, okay, good. Tips on transferring good med ball numbers to baseball. 38-40 on lateral med ball, but high 60s on baseball. So 38-40 on lateral med ball, I'd say is, you should be throwing probably in the 70s, to be honest. So here's the thing. That's not really great numbers with lateral med ball throws. So why are you 38-40? But this is Anika. So you're young. He's very young.
Okay.
So I think I forgot your age. So you're young. So the thing is I think your med ball and your baseball throws are close based on looking at those numbers. You probably should be into the 70s. So if you have a hard time picking up speeds more with the baseballs, then you're not moving quickly, or you could be changing. So sometimes I see guys that don't jump up good enough with the baseballs. They're usually bigger guys, so they throw the med balls hard because they're strong, and they give the baseballs and they don't increase their speed. So they need to be able to drop. When they get out of the med balls, they need to be able to be more explosive. Then the other guys I see, they throw it different. They'll throw the med ball, and the med ball is heavier, and it'll make them sit back longer, and they'll drive later, they'll separate better, and then they get to the baseball, and everything starts flying open. And I remember you from camp, and you were flying open. You were having a hard time, and I think that's the problem is you still have differences. So you need to start blending those drills. You need to start taking your med ball throws and doing the throws, and you need to start blending them. So like do 1-2 throws of the med ball and then 1 or 2 throws of the baseball, and blend them and film them and see where the differences are and try to make them the same. At the same time too, you need to gain a lot of weight. So nutrition and the lifting is going to be key for you to gain weight, because that's going to help you also as you age pick up more velocity.
I think one of the biggest problems I see too with kids trying to transfer from the med ball to the baseball is that you're doing the medicine ball to try to enhance your mechanics with the baseball. So say if I'm over here and I do the medicine ball throw, and I get down, I drive, and I stay back, and I separate, and I get up, and I get through the ball. If all of a sudden I pick up the baseball, and then I'm just going to throw a ball and forget everything that you did with the med ball, it's not going to transfer over. So if I'm here and I'm getting that good separation when I come back and I'm getting back and getting everything up, I'm trying to do that with the baseball too. You have to mirror the mechanics. So whatever you feel with the med ball there is what you're trying to do with the baseball.
You have to, and it has to be perfect. And I think that's the thing. Like Tyler was having a hard time. Tyler's sitting here throwing 47s with the med balls. But the problem is when he throws the med balls, the added weight, because he wants to fly open, the added weight would keep him back. He'd land here. But when then he grabbed the baseball, he was landing here, and it doesn't work with the baseball because your arm wants to go quick. The med ball is heavier, it'll stay back a little longer, still allowed him to throw the trunk into it. But if you're in that position with the baseball, it's not going to work. So you also got to make sure that you're still implementing the 3X mechanics. Am I optimally separating with the med balls and the baseballs? I can kind of cheat either one. I can cheat this one, I can cheat that one. You can't be cheating them. You got to really hit the mechanics as best you can and seamlessly put them together through both the drills.
I think a big problem too is that a lot of kids they've been throwing the wrong way from such a young age that you have that muscle memory that you pick up a med ball, and the med ball is a new thing. So I feel as if that your brain, as soon as you pick up the med ball, you're thinking, okay, I'm training myself how to throw something different, but you're really trying to do the same thing. So if you go here and all of a sudden you have great mechanics with that, you taught yourself how to do this, and all of a sudden as soon as you pick up the baseball, your brain goes, oh, I'm going to throw a baseball, and you fly open, you do all the same things that you were doing, or the same things that you were doing since you were young. You're not going to see that velocity gain. You have to reprogram yourself to throw like you throw with this.
I literally had one guy throwing the med balls like, unbelievable, and then he grabs the baseball and he's literally like,
for real, that's what it is. Like
right.
As soon as people pick up the baseball, it's like their brain switches to something else, and you have to. It really takes time to reprogram yourself to move how you move with this.
Why is my TFL sore after pitching? So your TFL can try to help stabilize your hip capsule. So we sit and drive a lot. So if that's getting overactive, I find it's because your glute's getting weak or your psoas is over tightening. So basically you need to get your glute stronger, you need to get your core stronger, and you need to get your psoas, you got to keep your psoas loose or stretch that out. Be careful stretching that out. And then that TFL won't try to knot up. So you're just losing the strength in your big muscle groups between your core and your glute, and that's your problem. I'm a right-handed pitcher, and my velocity is low 80s. If I can't make it to the starting rotation, should I switch to sidearm, which has more movement to become valuable bullpen? Now, here's the thing. A lot of coaches want to drop guys to sidearm, and it's usually a velocity problem. So think of it this way. Bartolo Colon played like 20 years in the major leagues, and he threw 80% fastballs. So if he was in high school or college dropping down sideways, throwing, breaking balls or moving pitches, or if he was throwing over the top but just kept throwing curveballs, what's his chance he's going to get to Major League Baseball and throw 80% fastballs for 20 years?
Not very high.
Right. So the point is like, yes, you can do this, but I guarantee you your career's over in 2 years. Because everyone who does that comes to me, their career's over in 1 to 2 years.
I mean, I think a big thing, too, is that if you're going to try to throw sidearm, that's a really big change. And obviously, like Brent said, I feel like there's a place for sidearmers. It depends. It's a different technique. It's a different style of throwing. But,
the guys that I played with in pro ball that were sidearmers, they could throw 91, 92 overhand, and then they could throw 88 to 91 here, but have this much movement. That was a reason to go sidearm.
Yeah.
It's not a reason to go sidearm because I'm throwing 82 over here and then I'm going to throw 75 over here. You have to be throwing hard from over the top and sidearm if you want to go into the professional levels throwing sidearm.
Well, typically, too, low 80s really isn't that hard. So it's like, the velocity has to, if you're taking a dip in velocity, the movement has to make up for it. So say if all of a sudden I go from 82 to 75, I really don't feel like that change in velocity is really going to be worth the movement that you're gaining.
Yeah, it's really, I think the ones that really love going sidearm is like, I had a guy I played with, he was like 91, 92 here, and he was like almost 91, 92 here.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, I'm going to throw the same speed here.
Well, look at Chris Sale. Like, I feel like Chris Sale throws 100 from here, so obviously, he could probably throw just as hard over top, but he throws the same speed from the side.
He gets all that movement.
Yeah, so obviously, it's a good idea for him to throw sidearm if he's throwing 101 miles an hour from here, but...
As long as it's healthy. Like, if I see a guy starting to drop down and start getting rotational, and the arm starts dragging, then I get concerned. So it needs to be healthy. It needs to be hard. You need to, like I said, if I'm going to go sidearm, it's because I can throw hard there, just like I can throw hard over the top.
I think one of the things, too, I hear from a lot of people is that people will watch Major League Baseball and go, hey, well, there's that lefty specialist, and he throws like 85. If he throws 85, I should be there. Well, you need to understand, that guy was probably throwing 95 miles an hour when he first got signed. So to get in, you need the velocity. You need to be able to impress the scouts, for them to say, wow, he really has talent, because you got to show talent in something. If you're out there throwing 84, 85, you're throwing sidearm and it's moving a lot, they're not going to want to sign you. They want to see that big arm first. And over time, those guys prove that they can get outs and pitch and stuff like that. And okay, yeah, they can stay there if they're still performing well, but you have to show that big-time velocity to get in, to get signed.
Yep. How important are the shoulders and ball velocity? Some tend to be believed strong shoulders are the most important thing for velo. What is your take?
I don't think that...
you have to have a strong upper body, but like that, you can't make that your only thing. You can't just be going for strong upper body. Like, the point is, like, I typically drive guys to build the legs and the core because that's the foundation, and then finish it off with the big upper body. But the point is, your focus first really needs to be building your legs and core, and in the process, you're starting to build your upper body. But when I say building your shoulders, like, to me, that's being able to press, good weight, half your bench press over your head, 150 pounds, maybe close to 200 pounds. It takes time. I want to be able to build up to that kind of strength.
Yeah, but I don't think that, most of the velocity comes from the shoulder. I feel as if that, obviously with the bench press you can increase velocity. Obviously with overhead press you can increase velocity, but it's more of obviously increasing velocity, but keeping the shoulder healthy, being allowing yourself to be able to throw hard in those positions and not break down over time.
Yes. And what about what's important role of the core? So it's all important, guys. Legs, core, forearms, shoulders. It's all important. It all has a major piece to it. Core is also, it's very important because that's going to allow me to delay my trunk. That's going to allow me to stabilize my trunk. That's going to allow me to really launch my trunk to the target, which studies show has the highest correlation to ball velocity. So yes, like, it's critical how developed our core is to be able to move our bodies that way, but it's not the only thing.
One thing I hear from pitching coaches all the time is that they say, and I bet you all you guys have heard this, use your body, use your body, use your body to throw the baseball. So if I'm using my body, they're talking about you got to use your whole body. You got to use everything. So if I'm over here and I'm neglecting, one muscle group, let's say, I have really strong quads, but my hamstrings are weak, but I think that I don't need to work my hamstrings because I'm driving enough. Or let's say, my forearms are strong, my tricep is strong, but then my bicep is weak. You know, the weakest link is what's going to make you break down. So if you have something in there that isn't where it needs to be, you have to get that strong.
And that's a good point. I mean, he's right. Like wherever you're the weakest, that's where you're going to get injured. You know, it's the whip analogy. If you look at the whip, if you got a little thin area in the whip, it's going to snap there. That's where it's going to break. It would do anything, like a car. If you have a car and you have a really bad back wheel, that's where it's going to break, guys. It's not going to break where the really new wheel is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Unless you hit a nail.
Yeah. How do you feel about the hold style weighted ball program? Is it actually healthier than normal throws? Do you see benefits in doing holds? So the studies, I think, were just showing that I think it was showing, I can't remember exactly, that it was helping strengthening the arm a little bit, the decelerator. So I would say, yeah, but once again, it doesn't do all the needs that we have to have in the upper body, which I talked about in the beginning of this live stream, is you need a lot more strength than just taking a regular ball or a 2-pound ball and decelerating it, you know, in a hold. It's not going to be enough, guys. I think it's fun, and for some reason baseball players are just scared of the weight room, but the weight room is going to do such a better job for your keeping your arm and your upper body healthy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things too. I mean, I feel like for weighted balls, it's just common sense. You know, think about it, you know, if I just, obviously, you know, most of the velocity comes from, you know, using the kinetic chain, building force through the ground and all that stuff. So if all of a sudden I get a weighted ball and I just add it to the end of the chain, and let's just say the arm's a rubber band. If I just stretch the arm a little bit farther over time, if I loosen that rubber band's not going to be as tight. So usually the ball velocity is going to stay the same, because let's say I have Brent's arm, and let's say he goes back this far with the baseball, but over time he's throwing weighted balls, he goes back this far, but when he gets back here, it's going to be looser, so the velocity when he comes through isn't going to be as hard.
No.
So.
Well, I mean, because the study's shown it doesn't strengthen the arm. It just is the external rotation. And what does external rotation really do? External rotation allows the trunk to carry farther forward before the arm internally rotates.
Yeah.
So the external rotation is allowing the trunk to pick up energy. But those who use weighted balls that don't throw harder, it's probably because when they go to get more external rotation, their trunk isn't really doing anything, so it's not working.
Yeah, well,
but once again, if that's the case, you really just need to learn how to get your trunk to move more explosively than worry about getting your arm to lay back more. Because if my arm my trunk moves more explosively, my arm's gonna stay back longer because there's more energy going. There's more lag to allow that arm to pick, or the trunk to pick up more velocity.
And what's a healthier way to train external rotation? You know, just slamming the weight so that way you can get your arm to lay back more, or actually using power from the ground up to take stress off of your arm to then allow your arm to get in those better positions.
I always said if you took the weighted ball approach into the weight room, and you had, if I went to a strength coach, I'd be like, hey, can I take, you know, they say 60 pounds of force goes back on your arm when you're throwing around 90 miles an hour. So if I told a strength coach, would it be a good idea if I took 60 pounds and slammed it back as hard as I could? Would that be a good idea? I don't think any strength coach in America would, or in the world, would say that's a good idea.
Well, the whole point is that you're not trying to train it. You're trying to train to be able to slam that weight, but you're trying to train around slamming that weight. So you're trying to strengthen this and all these things so that way when you hit it can handle it. You're not trying to go and do the thing that's going to hurt your arm. It's like throwing, you know, it's overthrowing. If I'm sitting there.
But also too, it's what we're teaching is the kinetic chain. It's a timing mechanism. It doesn't have to get up and create all that force laying back, that plyometric force. It just has to get up and it has to move with the trunk. It has to lay back. And because at that point, all the energy is going to be exploding up and the arm's just going to funnel that energy out. The problem is guys don't create all that energy coming up. So then they go crank it on the arm to try to make up for it. They're like, ah!
I think the biggest problem is that everybody's just focusing on the arm too much, man.
Right. And the point is,
yeah.
It's the kinetic chain. It's like you could take a ball, I could put it right here, and I could drive, and it would just shoot out of my hand because the energy came from the ground. Or I could just sit here and just use my arms and do it. Well, this is going to fatigue me after a while. Eventually, I'm going to be like, oh, I can't pick it up. This, I'm going to be able to do it longer because it's coming out of my legs. And that's the difference between using the kinetic chain or trying to just use your arm to create velocity, which is going to, you're going to fatigue faster, you're going to injure quicker, and your velocity is going to drop off faster. Like, everything's going to go wrong.
I just don't understand, you know, especially with driveline too, you know, they talk about, you know, they say front, let's just say they're talking about front leg extension, you know. If they really say that velocity comes from the front leg, then why are they going to the arm to get the velocity? I just don't understand why they're doing that.
Good question.
Doesn't make any sense.
All right, I think we're getting to the end of. Why don't you fly to the end and see if we got any last questions? That was pretty good. That was about an hour long.
Hi from Puerto Rico. Hey, hi brother.
What's up, Puerto Rico?
Hey.
All the way down. You went all the way down. Nothing.
No, I think you skipped a few. I think. Should pitchers shoulder press? Yes, pitchers should shoulder.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yes, upper body strength.
Adam.
Go ahead down. Go ahead on.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think
That's it. All right, guys. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend. We got camp this weekend. We'll probably we'll shoot off some of our Insta stories, and even on Snapchat, to show you some work at the camp this weekend. We got camp in Napa coming up. Don't forget about Napa. We'll see you next time.